Have you ever wondered why your paycheck feels so light when you know exactly how much you make an hour and then how many hours you worked in this past week, but the paycheck just seems like way lighter than what it should be, And most people honestly just shrug it off and, just like taxes, right? But it just got me thinking, like, where's all this money going, Because it can sound nice, right? We can use examples. It can sound nice if someone says you're making 20 bucks an hour, but actually you're really not. Because I wanted to find out where exactly all my money was going. And, to my surprise, I basically came up with the conclusion that basically half of my money is being taken away in taxes, and it's not like I'm some super wealthy dude. I'm a regular guy with a W-2, like most people are, right? So basically just saying, if you make $20 an hour, just consider yourself making 10 bucks an hour, which sounds kind of crazy because, taxes, it's not exactly 50%, but that's what I'm gonna break down entirely in this video. Because if they had let's just say one big slice of your paycheck that said, all right, here you go, you make 20 bucks an hour, you do 40 hours a week, that's 800 bucks in a week. We're just gonna slice it right down the middle, 400 bucks, here you go. And it's gonna be one big, tax, they say, right? No. That'd be way too easy. Too many people might throw a fit off of that. Instead, what do? They break it down into tiny little sections, right? So here's how the game with this taxing scam goes. So let's just say you starting off, you making you trying to start off, make a decent amount in a year, right? Your job. Let's just say you out of school, they say, all right, 50K year salary. That's what you make. I mean, it sounds good, right? Comes out to like 4,100 a month, and 4,100 every month. That sounds pretty good. You kind of be bragging to your parents, everything like that. But when you see that money actually get to your account, you'll be lucky to even see like $3,000, right? Maybe 3,200. So what happened with that difference? That difference between gross pay, which is the number on paper, and net pay, which is the number you actually get to live on. That's the scam in action. Okay. So 40 hours, 20 bucks in an hour, 800 bucks, right? But, Friday rolls around, look at your bank, and what do you see? You don't see 800. You see maybe 600. Okay. So that $200 gap, that money doesn't even get a chance to even get into your hands, and when you're not paying attention to it, you kind of just accept it, right? And that's what the majority of people do. Okay, so let's go into that. Who's getting into that paycheck before you even see it? Well, first off, you got federal income tax. Okay, the first one in your pocket, Uncle Sam, right? The federal income tax. And so in the US, we have what's called a progressive tax system, which basically, the more you make, the higher percentage they take, which it sounds fair in theory, but actually in practice, it feels like a shakedown. Okay, because you might heard people say, I'm in the 22% bracket, but that doesn't mean every dollar you earn gets hit at 22%. It's marginal, meaning the first chunk, right? Because they have like different brackets, and they have like the first chunk is taxed at 10%. Then they have a second chunk, which is that money alone is taxed at 12%. And then they have another chunk, which is taxed at 22%, right? So it might be a little bit less than technically 22%, but no matter how you slice it, right? There's hundreds going out every single paycheck. And then, right, April comes, favorite time for a lot of people. Why? Because you get a refund, right? The tax refund. And then most people like to celebrate it like it's free money, but it's really not. That's money that they borrowed essentially all year from you, interest free. So you basically gave the government a loan without even realizing it. And that is scam number one. Then next, you got FICA. And this one really gets me, because you have the FICA, which is like the Social Security, Medicare. So every single paycheck, 7.65% disappears total from FICA. 6.2% goes to Social Security, and then 1.45% goes to Medicare. And a lot of people don't even know that your employer actually matches the same amount on your behalf. So, technically in reality, you kind of cost them more than what the paycheck shows. It kind of just gets split, with the total percent, right? So, what are we even paying into? So Social Security, which, if we're being honest, it's probably going to be bankrupt, gone, or severely underfunded by the time us Gen Zs even get to retirement age, right? So it's basically just throwing free money away. We're not going to see that. And it's all for a benefit that we're not going to see, right? Just consider it's not even going to be there, right? I know my mom told me when she was a kid, they used to say that Social Security is not even going to be there when she retires, right? It's just crazy. Like, what makes you think it's going to last for us? I think it was like 2030. It was either 2032 or 2036 is when they have to restructure something about Social Security or it's going to run out, right? So, 10 years? I ain't retiring no 10 years, right? So that's scam number two. Now, depending on where you live, is when the state gets in on the action, right? So if you live in like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, one of them states that don't have an income tax, you're safe from that part, right? But there's a kicker on that. But let me just say, majority, I think there's only 5 states, right, that don't have that. So anywhere else, California, New York, Ohio, whatever, right, you're gonna get tax coming in, and then you're gonna get taxed in from that. So then, depending on where you live, you gotta think about city taxes. There's city taxes, there's county taxes. Obviously, this is gonna range all over. In Ohio, I know, because I live there, is you get hit with the state, you get hit with the city, and you get hit with the county. Okay, so you get hit with all these, and that stuff adds up, right? And now you might be thinking, even just going back to the no income states, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, I think it's like 2 or 3 more. When you think about those states, right, you think, oh wow, must be better to live there, right? But they make up for it in different ways with taxes, right? Because those are some of the highest property taxes that people pay into. Now, remember when I said it's basically like 50% of your total, whatever you make? Well, if you're just looking off from when your employer first pays you, let's make easy numbers. $25 an hour, 40 hours a week. What's that? $1,000. $1,000 for a week of work. Easy enough, okay? If you consider that, just consider 30% of it gone, you can basically expect to get paid $700. That's kind of what I do when I'm trying to figure out, how much I'm gonna make next week or something like that, because you got to think about all the extras. There's healthcare insurance premiums. Some people got like union dues, retirement contributions, like all stuff like that, right? And I'm not saying that retirement stuff is bad, right? But the fact is, like if you get a 401k match, which basically like free money, but the fact remains that you don't get to decide how much of your paycheck you actually get to touch. Okay, it's been pre-carved out for you before you even get to, look at your bank statement or anything like that. Now, when I say 50%, how I came to this conclusion, right? Because that's before you even get paid, right? They're taking, just consider 30% gone, right? Gone automatically. What about when you spend that taxed money? So you're bringing home $700 of what should have been $1,000, that's $700. Now that's going to get taxed on whatever you buy, right? Because you're already getting taxed on the state income, in the city, county, stuff like that. Now, when you spend, okay, anytime you buy something from the store, let's say you buy some shoes, easy numbers, $100. Them shoes are $100, but for me, it's probably like 8%. I believe the tax, the sales tax, that's $8 extra that you're giving away, right? So then stuff like that adds up. There's places where food gets taxed. Ohio, there's no food tax, but they make up for it in other ways. We got something like the highest property tax. Weird. Now, you got tax when you use fuel. So anything like gasoline, diesel, if you look at the pump, there's usually like a sticker or something that shows what the tax rate is on it, right? Because it's kind of already built in. You see the gas $2.99, that tax is already built into it. You're not paying additional, but there's tax in that. Then you got excise tax. So, it's like specific goods, basically. Whenever you buy tobacco, alcohol, now marijuana's legal, stuff like that, gambling, like there's heavy taxes on stuff like that. Then you want to drive your car around. You get taxed for licenses, registrations every year, any kind of other services that you use. And people think because they don't own a house, they're not getting hit with that heavy property tax. But you don't think your landlord's already building that in for you? Because now that their mortgage is higher because of that property tax, they're just going to cake it on top for you to pay. So you're still getting hit with the effects of it, regardless. And it's just so crazy because none of these companies or schools really prepare us for this, right? They always say, tax is just a part of it, but they never really break it down. Like if I'm working extra hours in a week, I feel like I'm going to be making way more money. And then I see the check hit and it's just so much less than I thought. I'm like, man, it's a bummer, right? And it's so crazy because that initial 30% that we don't even see, it's never even in our account. The real reason that nobody even riots about it is because, well, you never see the money. It doesn't hit your account. And it's not like they gave you, with our example, the full $1,000 and then took $300 from you, right? You're not making separate checks out to the government, to the IRS, Social Security, all these other things. They're just taking it from the get. So you don't even see it. It's gone before payday hits and everyone just shrugs their shoulder and just keeps moving along, right? And this wasn't by accident, the system is by design. And then of course, I just have to throw it in real quick. Inflation, right? Just to add to it. Okay. Let's just, you see the prices on stuff, groceries, gas, everyday items that you're using, everything's going up, right? And these wages that we're making, they might say, what, a 3% raise a year. True inflation is not 2 to 3%. It's really not. They can mess with, you might hear numbers if you're deep into the financial world. They say like the CPI numbers this month, the PPI numbers this month, and they try to get real technical, real confusing. Oh yeah, the inflation's really at 2.7%. We're seeing a decrease. Everything's going like, no. Like when you see prices double in the past 5 years, that don't equate out to 2% a year, 5%, 10% a year. That equates a 20% year over year over year to get that 100%, which is a double in the past 5 years. So they can spit out whatever numbers they want to, create with the whole scam with the Fed and everything else they do. But truth of the matter is, even if you are getting paid 3% more every year, you're not keeping up with true inflation. Truthfully. Like if we're going to pretend that 2-3% inflation is real, shoot me now. It's like, because it's not real. And when your wages aren't going up at the same rate that money's being inflated at, you're losing it like that. Okay. And that's a hidden tax that no one talks about, right? They just say, oh yeah, inflation, price is going up, inflation. And then that's it. That's the end of it. And then they complain about something else. Because if you had $1,000 in your bank account, if everybody had $1,000 in their bank account and they took 20% of it, right? And we lost $200, everybody would riot, everybody would storm the Capitol, everything else, right? We wouldn't have it. But if they just print a little money, so now everything that's worth $1,000 today is actually going to be worth $1,200 tomorrow, nobody bats an eye. We're just, oh yeah, that's just the way it goes, right? I still have my $1,000 in my bank account, but this $1,000 is only going to give me, 80% of what I used to buy with it, because now this $1,000 is actually $1,200, right? And this is how the system is designed. Okay, so all right. I'm done with all the doom and gloom. I'm done with all the bad news. How can you fight back to this? At least, right? I'm giving you all these problems. It ain't gonna be right if I don't give you a solution. Okay? So number one, you gotta play the tax game like the rich do. Okay? So if you're only a W-2 worker, you're gonna get crushed. W-2 worker is what makes up the majority of the population, which is the middle class, right? And we get hit the hardest because we have no deductions, no write-offs. There's no flexibility in it. So, what could you do? Perhaps start a side hustle, freelance, start your own little business, and all of a sudden now you can write off mileage, everyday stuff you use, part of your rent if you work from there. Your phone bill becomes part of it, your laptop, like you can control more of what the IRS takes. Okay, so if let's just say you're flipping couches on Facebook, you're doing cash only, you're not going to report that. So there's no point in writing all that stuff off. But let's say you start doing a bigger version of it. You start scaling, you start collecting like checks and people want to swipe cards and stuff like that. Okay, well, now that's when you start using like everyday stuff that you would buy, and then that's like a write-off. Now, I've seen also, I talked to this guy, he's a truck driver, right? I drive truck. I've been thinking about finding a job. He said he works as a 1099 driver. And I'm like, dude, that's dumb. Why would you want to get all that money up front and then you're going to have to pay it off in the back end? But he said, listen, young blood, I write majority of my stuff off. Whenever I go out to eat, well, that's for work. That's a write-off, right? I'm like, whoa. Everyday items. Well, I mean, you need toilet paper. Well, who's not to say, that toilet paper don't get used, just so happens to fall into the hands of your own house and not just a truck, right? I'm not saying do nothing illegal, nothing crazy. But if you play the game like the rich do, I mean, you kind of get where I'm going with this, right? Not 100% just for his truck. All right, so I'm not going to get myself in any trouble, but you get what I'm saying, right? 1099s, your own little business. If you want to buy extra stuff, make income, and then you make income off of it, man, write stuff off. Write stuff off. All right, so number two, you can maximize kind of what the system is giving you through your employer benefits. Now, it's not really preached too much, I don't think, but like if your company offers 401k match, take it, right? I mean, you're guaranteed 100% return, free money. Why would you not put it in a retirement account? It leaves your taxable income lower, and it's just something you don't want to leave on the table, right? You can take advantage of the system a little bit. Then they have like health savings accounts. They got the HSAs, health saving account. That's cool because it's another tax advantage on that. You get it tax-free going in, and then there's like a small little tax-free growth. I don't know what it is now, maybe 5%, something, whatever. Tax-free though. And then you get tax-free coming out when you spend it on healthcare stuff. So even if you need like a first aid kit for the house, right? That's healthcare stuff. Chapstick. I bought chapstick. I bought Carmex before with it. That's healthcare stuff, right? And of course, these ain't some crazy ideas, but they literally save you thousands over time. So why would you not do it? Number 3 is basically just diversifying your income streams. So don't just rely on one paycheck, okay? Because that's how you get trapped. And one thing happens with that one money flow, your world gets flipped around, right? So start stacking that side income. You can do anything from literally online work to freelancing, but even to investing. You got real estate, small cash flow side hustles, stuff like that. When money flows in from these multiple places, kind of on the first point I was hitting, but no single deduction can crush you, right? Because you can split it across avenues when it's for your business. Okay, so just diversifying that income stream, not just with one side hustle or two, spread it out. Number 4, you can beat inflation with assets. Okay, so if you're just keeping your money in a checking account, that money there just goes to die, right? You need assets that's growing faster than inflation. Whether you're going through stocks, ETFs, real estate. I mean, I wouldn't do bonds, but bonds is always an option. Crypto, anything that just keeps your dollar from rotting away is what I'm getting at, right? You keep your monthly expense in your checking account because you don't spend it, and then you keep a small emergency fund for cash that you need like within the hour. Everything else, man, don't stack too much in your regular checking account, your regular savings account. Okay, let that money work for you in a real investment, even if you have a high yield saving account. No, like that 4 or 5% ain't doing much for you. Okay, and then just the last thing is really just understanding the game, because the biggest hack in all of this is just being aware. You listening to a video like this is literally making you aware of the situation. You care enough to actually listen to something like this versus any other thing you could be doing. You be scrolling Instagram, TikTok, fucking all, like whatever. It don't matter. Like, just keeping an open mind to this, because most people never think about this. They just accept whatever number hits their account. Whenever they spend, they don't think about that extra little 5, 8, 10%, whatever that comes out when they spend. When you understand how every dollar gets taken from you, you start thinking differently from it. And then you think the opposite way. What are the rich doing that are winning? You look for ways to flip the rules in your favor, right? Because the system wasn't designed for the majority to win. When you start thinking like the minority, okay, now things can start, going your way. So look, just wrapping this up, the shift of thinking as a producer than a consumer, it changes everything. When you question how this system was built, for you, everything's perfect. You're thinking like a consumer when you just accept what they give you. When you think on the opposite end, you think more like a producer, like, So they set this system up to where the middle class, the majority of the population, gets hit with the most tax. Like, you got to shift your whole perspective on this game. I mean, if anything, it should make you hungrier to build side income, start your own business, do whatever you desire, right? It makes you just smarter with taxes, and you can see how inflation is now something that you want to like conquer. You want to beat the system of inflation, right? It's not just something you complain about, because I hate people that complain like that. Personally, if you're going to complain about something, if you're going to name all the problems, I want to hear solutions. If we're not talking about problem, solution, cause, and effect, I honestly don't want to hear it. Okay, so this is something, you're not just one of those problem peoples that just name problems. You know somebody that always just complains, a million problems in the world, but no solution for it. This is your solution right here. Taking action, trying to actually beat the game. Because yes, it is rigged. Yes, prices are going up. Yes, it does suck. But we need solutions. We need action. We need to realize this system is not built in our favor. Okay? Because at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, of course, the system is not fair. Of course, there's someone to blame. There's right, there's wrong. But all that, fairness, who's to blame, it doesn't matter. What matters is taking accountability for what you can do, right? No politician is going to come save us. There's no person that's going to, all of a sudden have a change of heart, and the system's not going to be different tomorrow. Okay? What matters at the end of the day is whether you can play this game, because we're in the game, whether you want to be in it or not. You can play this game better than, everyone else. And really everyone else is still blind to it. And then once you can figure this out, then you start spreading the message. You start helping people that are still blind to it, right? Because it's not like I woke up one day and I was like, yeah, where did all my taxes go? Like it's a process that you just hear so many complaints. You see what's wrong with the world, and you get to the conclusion of it all. And what owns the world? Well, it's all about who controls the money. Money, they put it in this big jargon of finance, right? You can figure out the finance game, you can conquer anything. Money is power at the end of the day. And they use this money to suppress us, to control our minds. And of course, the system is not fair. The system was never designed to be fair. Even just thinking thousands of years ago, back in the big empires, the Roman empires, Athens, Greece, like anything. There was always winners, and then you got the peasants. You think anybody at the top is going to care? Going to come help anybody at the bottom? Especially Gen Z, the new generation. Oh, look who's all in office. They're all old as dirt, crusty old men and stuff like that. Like, bro, I just wanted this video to help wake you up, help you make your own conclusion about this situation. How do you feel about this? What can you do to better your situation? Help people around you that you care about, right? And that's the whole point of my channel. That was the whole point of this video. But appreciate you listening. I'm out.